The power of isolation. Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about the horrors of isolation today, but bear with me. Good day, I'm Lana Bobić, a feminist theologian, researcher, and activist. When I was invited to participate, which to be honest really flatters me, I first thought about covering the topic of isolation through the lenses of some of the topics that I have been professionally most involved with, and those are gender-based violence, gender equality, the relation of structural and cultural violence to discrimination and violence. But the more I thought about isolation, the more my emotions and my thoughts were occupied with the thought of a single but very complex and multi-layered concept: motherhood. I took the assignment very personally. I neither have time or the knowledge to present a cross-cultural overview of motherhood and isolation. I do not have the time to tackle the question of motherhood in relation to isolation through various identity perspectives or various space and time, cultural, social, and political contexts. I decided to present multi-layers of motherhood and isolation through my own experience, meaning it will be quite, I'm sorry, heteronormative, mid-class, Western society oriented. I will not be able to show the specific layers of isolation related to motherhood experience of those who have adopted or got involved in the journey of motherhood without giving birth, those whose journey started with the help of medicine, LGBTIQ persons, single mothers, people with disabilities, minorities, and marginalized groups. Nevertheless, some of the layers of isolation I will speak about today are something that these people also experience. I did not decide to talk about my perspective because I think it's special, but because talking to various women, whether my family, friends, or acquaintances, whether women I have worked with, women who have survived intimate partner violence, obstetric violence, and refugees, have shared my experiences of isolation connected with our motherhood journey. And yes, I do understand motherhood as a journey, not as a state. And yes, of course, as a feminist, I will be spicing up this conversation with a little bit of feminist critique of the concept that we tie with motherhood in our Western societies. So my journey basically, I'll try to be funny. My journey basically began with my ovaries isolating an egg. The egg's active role has historically been isolated with quite sperm-centered understanding of conception, but nevertheless, the egg did its active role. My body decided not to isolate the fertilized egg, and soon my body made a placenta, which slowly but surely basically isolated my organs from the usual space they hold in my body. Yeah, okay, I'm a theologian. I'm also a Christian, so maybe I shouldn't be even making jokes about biology. I mean, my people believe in immaculate conception, so we should skip this part. Even more important, why shouldn't we be linking motherhood solely to biology? Is because it can be really, really harmful. It isolates, I'm going to totally overuse the term isolation, is the experience of motherhood of those who haven't given birth to their children and of those who have given birth but did not engage in the journey of motherhood. Even more dangerous, it can lead to biological essentialism. The reproductive potential of a woman is still often understood as a basis for understanding motherhood as an ontological purpose of woman. This is also the teaching of Catholic Church. If woman cannot biologically be a mother, then should be spiritually, so to say, so take care of the society, of the children, of everybody. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who sees the connection between these ideas and what we call women's jobs, those jobs that are connected with caring caretaking. So this idea basically isolates numerous women identities, isolates their potential for various social roles, imposing the role of the mother with a big M, isolates the experiences of all the women who do not find their sole purpose or purpose at all in motherhood. The latter, especially when women decide not to be mothers, they're denied to have capacity to make autonomous decisions, and they're denied of their full womanhood, so to say. We have all experienced the narratives that belittle women who decide not to have children as self-centered women, telling them that they will change their mind when they get older, or that they will regret this decision when they are old. Making the reproductive potential of women the main signifier of their potential roles, identities, isolates women from their autonomy, choices, opportunities, and enable them their full development. Contrary to what I have said before, that I will skip the biology part, I will briefly go back to the biology part of that was concerned with my own experience, and that is giving birth. But just to try the quite patriarchal medical approach to giving birth that isolates mother from birth. Or do we think laying on your back while delivering a baby is something mother-centered? No, it's not. It's doctor-centered. For the sake of being as gentle as I can, I will not mention all the methods patriarchal medicine practices, like tying woman, cutting the pelvic or pubis bone, coarse procedures such as forceps, vacuum, induction, breaking amnion, episiotomy, numerous invasive, too often medically not justified procedures, are basically isolating women from their needs and autonomy for the sake of a faster birth. Many women end up with birth trauma that could have been avoided with an approach that is more birth person-centered. I won't even go into more layers of those experiences of women who had complication or C-section. The path of the motherhood for those mothers who gave birth is also very often a path that includes a birth trauma that no one acknowledges. That trauma is being isolated. Often I have witnessed women opening the trauma they have endured because of patriarchal approach to birth 10, 20, 30 years after that occurred, because right after giving birth, no one had the time to listen to them. Everyone was really eager to know how the baby is and celebrating the beautiful wonder of a new life with no space for the traumatic experiences of mothers, because there was no one to listen, because all the fears and traumas were silenced with million women survived, you will too. On the other hand, there is a positive isolation that came out of it, and that is isolated safe spaces that women create in order not to feel alone, in order to support each other fears, traumas, which is a beautiful way of overcoming the isolation of their traumatic experiences. I will not even go into isolating knowledge in such a cynical way that we have recently discovered benefits of skin-to-skin baby-mother contact. Ingenious, truly, pardon my sarcasm. A bit of good practices just to let go of my anger. Postpartum, we are still isolating the fact that postpartum can take years, but we did invent this practice of giving women 6 to 8 weeks period time when women are recommended to rest in order for the bodies to recover and mind adjust to such a change. I will go further, breastfeeding. All the layers of isolation when it comes to breastfeeding. Western society has made isolation an integral part of breastfeeding, whether you breastfeed, whether you cannot breastfeed, whether you don't want to breastfeed. If you want or do not want to isolate yourself depending on how intimate you perceive breastfeeding, you will not have a choice. If you breastfeed on demand, people will be questioning if you are giving too much, adjusting baby to too much attention, letting the baby dictate your tempo. Even if you decide to breastfeed in public, I'm not sure you will feel completely comfortable, since our Western society isolated the feeling of comfort from breastfeeding in public. We have hypersexualized the women boobs, the women nipple, so much that we actually cannot come to terms with women boobs being basically a baby feeder. And if you cannot or dare to decide not to breastfeed, you will be isolated from full womanhood. You will not be considered a real woman, real mother, etc., etc. Whatever you do, you will be judged. Of course, this is in the last year that we have rediscovered breastfeeding as something good for the baby and the mother. Before that, there was a time when women were isolated from informed choice with propaganda of formula-producing companies who spent fortunes in convincing medical staff and mothers in health superiority of the formula. But that's material for the topic of capitalism, layers of isolation. Back to our topic, do not worry, any decision you make on the path of motherhood, as I said, will be judged. Layers of isolation of our autonomies, needs, and feelings. We ourselves are full of prejudice. Maybe we should also talk about isolation of our bodies. We miss our bodies. We are not recognizing our bodies anymore. Maybe we even hate our bodies. The bodies that we so often hate are the bodies that have executed, well, basically a miracle, producing a new human being from a single sperm. It's like being brainwashed with the expectations of how our bodies should look and beauty industry standards, so we do not celebrate our bodies as basically creators of life. We get consumed with how pregnancy affects our bodies, often neglecting all the changes that are happening in us. And for me, this was the most fun part of the story. Isolation of identities. Seriously, this will be different from person to person, but again, I think that every person that goes through the journey of motherhood experiences some kind of isolation of identities. To be completely honest, in the beginning, I think I lost all of my identities. I think I just felt like a walking boob. I was breastfeeding, and that was for the first couple of weeks. Later, I feel like my identities hid for the mother identity to form. After I got into the rhythm, all of my identities were consumed with motherhood. After a couple of months, I realized that I'm jealous of my partner because he's going to work, because now and then he's meeting friends, etc., and etc. In a way, I loved my new self. I was lucky to be blessed with a lot of oxytocin and all those hormones that made me more gentle than ever, calm, blissful, not loud for the first time in my life. I think my voice adjusted to what I perceived my baby's needs. But I have also become solely a mother. And the path of motherhood, I believe, is not about becoming a mother with a big M, but incorporating the mother identity. Yes, that means change, and we often have problems adjusting to change for various reasons, including the lack of systemic support. I live in a society that claims to put children first, yet offers very little systemic support to families, to partners, to parents, to mothers. Isolating reproductive labor, my favorite topic as a feminist, from what we understand as labor. Reproductive labor is not considered work, but mother's self-sacrificing love, because there is nothing more an adult can love but being a project manager for free with no value added to this tremendous work. Yeah, really. The myth of women doing the reproductive labor out of love and the need to sacrifice for their family is a tool of exploiting their work, getting the job done without giving the value to the job. Maybe some flowers on Mother's Day. Gender equality is not solely about getting women into working labor, but getting men into the private sphere as well. So stop the isolation of the fathers from the field of reproductive work. Hey, I won't be only negative, heads up. No matter how you deal with these tremendous changes in your life, don't dare to forget motherhood is a path of pure happiness and joy. For the notion of motherhood as an ontological purpose of women, any hardship will be condemned. It is not labor, it is blessing, and you should cherish it. Oh, is something wrong with you? What? You have hard times adjusting to motherhood? You don't like being a mother? Something must be wrong with you. And all the other gaslighting we hear that lead to isolation of a very real experiences and feelings of overwhelm, disconnection, isolation, boredom, anxiety, resentment. Again, safe spaces that mothers with similar experience create, not to feel alone, to get support and isolate themselves from help, from all this judgment, open the topics of these realities. Postpartum depression has been highly researched, and the public discourse has been reshaping. Stigma is being deconstructed in our times. But back to me. As I said, after a couple of months, I started to miss my social and professional life. I started to miss a lot of things. Months passed, and I thought I'm going to miss so much and that I will professionally and socially be completely forgotten. Everything was happening, and I was missing everything out. Luckily, the pandemic hit. I'm joking. This was so inappropriate. Not luckily, but yeah, to tell you the truth, the parents, the mothers of children in schools, they went to hell. But most of the people who are middle class, not working in all those working fields that were on the front lines during the pandemic, the people who could have worked from home, said that it was the best time to have a baby or a toddler because everything slowed down. Everything went viral through Zooms, etc., and you could really have time to be at home. It took me a lot of time to integrate all my identities again, and I have just grasped the problems of social isolation, work isolation, economic isolation, partner isolation, how to be a partner again, how to isolate, constantly thinking about your child so you can be a partner, etc. There is a lot of things happening here, and I haven't even had the time to tackle the question of social, economic, and all the other isolations, women who are less lucky and less privileged than me. Lucky is a really wrong thing to say because I don't think that we should be have luck or have privileged. I think we should have a system that supports us, but that's just me. I said I was lucky and privileged, but imagine just what is going on with all those women who are losing their jobs, who are losing their opportunities to go further in their jobs, who are not being able to get a job because, like a lot of women who survived intimate partner violence, they start to look for a job, but then they cannot get their child in kindergarten because they're unemployed, and then they cannot find employment because they cannot organize childcare. Loneliness is one of the topics that is being highly researched when it comes to mothers, when it comes to parents. You can do it all. We can have it all, they say. We cannot. Not in a systems built on competition rather than cooperation. We do not have a village. And frankly, I don't want to do it all. It leaves me drained. It leaves me racing all the time, never being enough in all the fields. Something is always being sacrificed, being isolated. And among others, for that reason, we often feel guilt. Please isolate the guilt. Isolation. Maybe motherhood is the path of learning to integrate and manage isolation. Oh, and I forgot. Spontaneity. I miss spontaneity the most. The opportunity not to plan and manage everything. No matter how organized we are, the motherhood path involves chaos. And I think we need to let go the idea that we can ever isolate the chaos. Which is why I took the liberty to let my thoughts on this topic flow spontaneously and a bit chaotically, although I written them down. I let a bit of chaos. Bear with me. Thank you for bearing with me.